Hey there, amazing fans! Before we dive into today's drama, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to us. Now, welcome to another relaxing moment with Sugar Stories. Grab a seat, sit back, relax, and let's journey into the story together. Ethan Cross was the kind of man who filled a room, not with charm, but with ego. A polished real estate broker in his mid-30s, Ethan lived for image. He wore designer suits like armor, flaunted his sports car like a trophy, and treated every conversation like a performance meant to show off his intellect, wealth, and wit. He married Lila Moore not for love but for leverage. She was beautiful in a subdued way, polite, always calm, the perfect obedient wife he could parade around and silence at will. She never raised her voice, never challenged his rants. And Ethan mistook her stillness for emptiness. "You know what your problem is, Lila?" he asked one morning, sipping his black coffee at their marble kitchen island. "You're boring. I talk and talk, and you just absorb it like wallpaper." Lila placed a plate of eggs beside him. "You like quiet in the morning." He smirked. "Doesn't mean I want to eat breakfast with a ghost." She didn't flinch. Instead, she offered a soft smile. "Would you prefer someone louder?" Ethan laughed. "I could have had someone louder. I chose you because you don't nag. You don't ask for anything. You just exist. Like a houseplant." Lila nodded slowly and sat across from him. "And yet you water me so often." He frowned, unsure if she was joking or criticizing him. "Just don't overthink your place here, all right? I do the earning. You keep the house in order. That's how it works." To outsiders, their home looked idyllic, a modern two-story with glass walls, sleek furniture, and a perfectly trimmed lawn. But inside, it was a silent battleground. The neighbors whispered. Mrs. Castillo, who lived next door, once saw Ethan barking at Lila in the driveway over the color of mulch she'd ordered. Lila had apologized, bowed her head, and retreated inside. "You okay, dear?" Mrs. Castillo had asked the next day. "I'm content," Lila replied. "And sometimes contentment is just peace in disguise." But peace was a mask Lila wore well. By day, she cooked and cleaned. By night, she read books under a dim light while Ethan snored, drunk on scotch and self-importance. Sometimes, late at night, Lila would stare at the ceiling and mouth words that belonged to another life. Avalon House. Eleanor. Windmere Trust. Because once, she had been someone else. Someone powerful. And Ethan had no idea who he was mocking. On the first Tuesday of every month, Lila slipped away under the guise of shopping. But instead of heading to boutiques or salons, she boarded a quiet city-bound bus and descended into another world far from her marble prison. Tucked into a forgotten alley behind rusted iron gates and ivy-choked walls was Marlowe's Rare Books, a sanctuary of whispers and dust. The shop looked abandoned to most, but it was alive with secrets. Inside, the scent of time hung heavy, ancient leather, yellowed pages, and candle wax. There were no cash registers, no digital systems. Just Mr. Alcott, a stooped old man with eyes like polished stones, who had known Lila since she was 10. "It arrived," he said, before she even spoke, handing her a thick, cream-colored envelope sealed with a wax emblem, an owl clutching a key. She ran her thumb over the crest. Her family symbol. For truth. In the reading room behind a false bookshelf, Lila lit a single candle and read, "My dearest Lila, you've made it. The final trust condition has been fulfilled. Morgan and Wells will contact you within days. Everything is ready. You were never meant to live in hiding forever, only long enough to learn what real love is, and what cruelty disguises itself as. Now the world must see you, not as a wife, but as an empire. With love, always Eleanor." Her hands trembled. Not from fear but from the long-buried weight of her inheritance returning. Eleanor Moore, matriarch, titan of philanthropy, her grandmother had orchestrated it all. After the deaths of Lila's parents in a jet crash engineered by hostile rivals, Eleanor faked her own death to protect her last living heir. Lila had grown up surrounded by CEOs, diplomats, and world leaders. Yet the wealth had always been matched by caution. "If you disappear," Eleanor used to say, "you must choose when to return. Never let others choose for you. Mr. Alcott returned with a heavy leather dossier. Golden script across its face read, "More Global Foundation." "They'll come soon," he said gently. "Are you ready?" Lila nodded. Her eyes no longer flickered with uncertainty, only clarity. "Yes." She signed. By the time she returned home, dusk had fallen. Ethan was sprawled across the couch, a beer in hand, half watching a reality show. "Where've you been?" Silence incarnate. "Let me guess, a knitting convention?" "Bookstore," she said, removing her coat. He scoffed. "God, I married a ghost. You know that, right? All you do is float around here, never a complaint, never a thought. Sometimes I wonder if you even have a personality." Lila looked at him for a long moment. "You'll know soon enough," she said. He laughed, missing the meaning entirely. "But the day you surprise me will be the day pigs fly." She gave a soft smile, not out of amusement, but as a quiet farewell to the role she had played. Upstairs, she opened her wardrobe. Behind a panel in the back hung a single silk garment bag. Inside it, the white suit her grandmother had commissioned for her long ago. Tailored for the day she would return, not as a wife, but as a legacy. Tomorrow she would wear it, and the world, especially Ethan, would never see her the same way again. It was mid-morning when the call came, ordinary on the surface, yet it shattered Ethan's world. Lila was in the garden, quietly pruning the white roses Ethan always ignored. Her hands moved with slow precision. Inside, Ethan paced around the kitchen, searching for his Bluetooth headset. "Where is that damn thing?" he muttered. He spotted her phone vibrating on the counter and glanced at the screen. The name read, Morgan & Wells INTL. "What kind of boring solicitor name is that?" he mumbled. The call kept ringing. Annoyed, Ethan picked it up. "Hello? This is Lila's phone." A crisp, authoritative voice answered. "Mr. or Mrs. Moore? This is Victoria Gray from Morgan & Wells International. We're calling to confirm final arrangements for the activation of the Windmere Trust. Ms. Moore is now the full controlling authority of the Moore Global Foundation." Ethan blinked. "What foundation? What trust?" There was a brief pause. "I'm sorry, may I ask who you are exactly?" "Her husband," he said, heart-hammering. "Then perhaps you should speak with your wife. She'll want to prepare for the arrival of the legal team and security escort this afternoon." The line went dead. Ethan stood frozen, the phone trembling in his hand. Security escort? Legal team? Trust activation? He stormed outside. "Lila!" She turned, wiping her hands on her gloves. "Yes. What the hell is the Moore Foundation? Who's Victoria Gray?" Lila took off her gloves and folded them neatly. "Victoria is my family's legal advisor." "Family? What are you talking about? Since when do you have lawyers calling about trusts and—" Before he could finish, the sound of engines filled the street. A convoy of sleek black cars pulled up to the driveway. Men in tailored suits stepped out. One opened the rear door and out stepped Victoria Gray, tall, poised, with a tablet in hand. "Ms. Moore," she said, approaching Lila. "All documents are prepared. Shall we begin the review?" Ethan's mouth hung open. What the hell is going on? Victoria glanced at him, then back to Lila. Is he to be briefed or escorted out? Lila's eyes met Ethan's for the first time, cold and crystalline. "Escort him out." "What?" Victoria gave a subtle nod. Two men in discreet suits approached. "You can't just—" "Lila, this is my house." Lila stepped closer. Her voice, steady and soft, sliced through him like a blade. "No, Ethan. It's my house. Purchased in full under the Windmere Trust. Every asset, every account, even the car you love so much is legally mine." He staggered back. "You tricked me." "No," she said. "You ignored me. You mocked what you didn't bother to understand. And now, the consequences have arrived." Ethan was escorted to the curb, dazed, as neighbors watched from behind curtains. The convoy doors shut. The gates closed. Inside, Lila signed the final page. The empire was hers. And the silence that had once made her invisible, now echoed with undeniable power. Ethan Cross sat in a rundown motel room on the outskirts of the city, his pressed suits traded for wrinkled shirts and mismatched socks. The room smelled of mold and desperation. A cracked mirror reflected a man he barely recognized, sunken eyes, patchy stubble, pride stripped to the bone. He replayed the moment in his mind over and over. Lila, dressed in white, commanding the room. Those sleek black cars. The men in suits. The look in her eyes when she said, "Escort him out." That had been a month ago. He tried calling. No answer. He'd gone to the house twice, only to be turned away by private security. Even his bank account had frozen. The car was gone. His brokerage firm had dropped him, quietly severing ties after whispers of embezzlement and unethical behavior began circulating. But Ethan knew the truth. Lila hadn't just taken back her legacy. She had let him destroy himself, brick by arrogant brick. At Moore Global's headquarters in Midtown, Lila stood before a room of press, CEOs, and foreign delegates. She wore the white suit, sharp, sleek, a symbol of quiet force. The media buzzed. "Ms. Moore, what inspired your sudden return to the public eye after a decade in seclusion?" Lila gave a calm smile. "I was never in hiding. I was observing. Sometimes the best way to understand the world is to live as if you have nothing. Only then can you learn who truly sees you." The reporters were captivated. Headlines soon followed. Silent heiress returns to reclaim billion-dollar legacy. From housewife to empire builder, the rise of Lila Moore. Her first initiatives were stunning. Funding women-led startups, rebuilding underserved communities, launching a global literacy program in her grandmother's name. She didn't just step into the spotlight, she expanded it, inviting those long overlooked to stand beside her. But even amid the success, there was still a shadow. Ethan began writing emails. Rambling, apologetic, angry, desperate. "Lila, I didn't know who you were. You lied to me. Please, just talk to me. Let me explain. I'm sorry." No replies. Then came the letter. A formal envelope embossed with the Moore crest. "Mr. Cross, the Foundation wishes you well in rebuilding your life. There will be no further communication. Any additional attempts to contact Ms. Moore will be considered harassment and handled accordingly. Kindly, Morgan and Wells International." Ethan stared at the paper for hours. She hadn't even signed it herself. At a charity gala weeks later, the room shimmered with opulence. Lila descended a staircase beneath a chandelier made of Murano glass. Applause erupted. Guests stood. Among the crowd was a young woman live-streaming the event. "There she is," she whispered. "Lila Moore. She's like a queen." Another whispered back, "You know she was married to that sleazy realtor, Ethan Cross? He used to call her boring." The first girl snorted. "Bet he's watching this from a bar stool." And he was. In a dive bar on 8th Avenue, Ethan stared at the screen above the counter. There she was, radiant, poised, shaking hands with diplomats. "You know her?" the bartender asked, drying a glass. Ethan gave a dry laugh. "I used to be married to her." The bartender looked him over. What the hell happened? Ethan didn't answer. What could he say? That he mistook grace for weakness? That he built a prison of arrogance and shoved a queen inside it? He left the bar in silence. One rainy night, he stood across the street from the Moore Foundation building, watching a massive digital billboard flash Lila's face. Lila Moore, visionary, leader, legacy. Her eyes on that screen were not the eyes he remembered. They were sharper, wiser, free. He whispered to no one, "I didn't know." A voice behind him answered. It was Mrs. Castillo, holding her umbrella. "You never asked." He turned, startled. "You mocked her every day," she said softly. "I used to think she was silent because she was afraid. Now I know she was silent because she was waiting." Ethan couldn't hold her gaze. "I lost everything." She shook her head. "No, Ethan. You threw it away." She walked off into the rain, leaving him staring at the image of the woman he had once called boring. The woman he had mocked for being invisible. Now the world couldn't stop looking at her. And he would spend the rest of his life wishing he had truly seen her when it mattered most. In the final scene, Lila stood atop the Moore Global Tower at sunrise, looking out over the city. The wind caught the ends of her silk scarf. Behind her, Victoria Gray waited. Everything's signed. The last of the old board is stepping down. The foundation is entirely yours now. Lila nodded. Thank you, Victoria. Would you like to say anything for the press release? A final statement. Lila thought for a moment. Then, without turning, she said, I was never silent. I was listening. And now, it's my turn to speak.